Thank you for tuning in to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Whether you're listening during your commute, while working out, or just relaxing at home, we appreciate you. Every download, every listen, and every subscription means a lot. Up next, the 12 Kyle podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I am your boy, 12 Kyle. Man, check this out. On this episode, what I want to talk about is game. Not the sport, but game, like the game of life. But I will tell you this first and foremost. It won't be too much game. Shout out to the homie Uncle Dolomite and the Too Much Game podcast. But on this episode, I'm going to be a little bit like Dolomite. I'm just going to give you some game. And the game that I'm going to give you today is based off of a meme that I saw on Facebook the other day. Got to shout out Coach Page. He posted it on his Facebook page, and I saw it, and I immediately screenshot it because these are, what I'm going to say is a lot of words to live by and things that you can adapt into your everyday life. And that's what game is. Game isn't about playing games or running game. It's about how you take information, words of encouragement. Sometimes it could be motivation, and use it in your everyday life. And I think if we're being honest with ourselves, we probably don't get enough game on a day-to-day basis. Or maybe, just maybe, we get game from people who don't know what they're talking about. Or we get game from people who don't have anything to bring to the table when it comes to speaking something real. One of the things that I love about, listening to the Too Much Game podcast with Uncle Dolomite is that, he's going to tell you the real. And a lot of times I find myself, even though he's my boy, I find myself listening and nodding my head along because I agree 1,000% with what he's saying. I think a lot of times in life, we hear things, we see things, and for whatever reason, we don't pay attention to them. There's an old saying that it goes something to the effect, and I'm paraphrasing here, something to the effect of everybody sees the writing on the wall, but they just assume it's for someone else. And that's game. And when the writing is on the wall, you have to know what time it is as it relates to you. So on this episode, like I said, I'm just going to give you some game. Take it for what it's worth. Take it as the gospel, but take it and implement it into your everyday life. And these are in no particular order. Number one, even when you trust someone, keep some things to yourself. I'll say it again. Even when you trust someone, keep some things to yourself. Simply put, everything ain't meant for everybody. And everything's not meant for everybody to know. There is a level of diplomacy. There's a level of secrecy. There's a level of compartmentalism that you should have within yourself. Everybody shouldn't know everything about you and your business. I mentioned Facebook earlier. I think one of the things that I always hear people say, oh man, people all in my business. Well, if you put your business on Facebook, yeah, people are going to be in your business. Duh. You're just waving a white flag saying, hey, come see what I got cooking over here. And so you have a hand in that. You're assisting in that. So you can't really be mad about people being in your business when, simply put, where you invited them in. And in most cases, people are going to come inside to your business and stay there and talk about you because you force-fed them information. It's funny because I saw this post a couple of months ago, and I'm not going to name this person's name, but let's just say this person posted something about their significant other that they did not like. And they were adamant about, the fact that this person's significant other wasn't good. She was tired of him, blah, 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 blah. And I just said to myself, I wonder how long this post is going to stay up. because she unleashed the hounds on him. And, a couple of months, maybe a month passed. The post only stayed up for maybe 2 or 3 days. And I kept checking just to see. And sure enough, she came back and then, maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, posting selfies with the dude. And so it's like, whatever issue she had with him, you gotta keep that stuff in house. But like I said, even when you trust someone, some things you got to keep to yourself. So whatever her frustration was with that man, keep that to yourself. It wasn't meant for me to see or anybody else to see. Because here's the thing. A lot of people saw it. And you want to know how I know a lot of people saw it? Because nobody commented on it. Nobody. And that's usually the case when you have a lot of eyeballs and very little interaction. A lot of people, you definitely have more people seeing than you do commenting. But again, game. It's just game. Even when you trust someone, keep some things to yourself. Number 2, if you want to build something worthwhile, be ready for criticism. Man, listen, there's always going to be people that criticize whatever you do. It does not matter. I don't care if you're doing something good. I don't care if you're doing something great. I don't care if you're doing something that's beneficial to everybody. There's always going to be some people who disagree with what you're doing, and they're going to be critical of it. Now, is everybody able to be criticized? Of course. But if you're doing something good and it's something worthwhile, you would think that you wouldn't be criticized for it, right? I mean, like, let's take this podcast, for instance. I thought it was a good idea to make this podcast. But here's the thing. There was going to be criticism about this podcast, because this is a level of creative art that I have produced myself. And so I understand that this podcast isn't everybody's cup of tea. It's not Drink Champs. It's not Joe Budden. It's not, Michelle Obama's podcast. It is the 12 Kyle podcast. It is hosted, directed, and starring none other than yours truly, 12 Kyle. So if Kyle likes the podcast, I don't give a shit who don't like it, because it don't bother me. It really doesn't. But I will say this much. I understood that even in being creative, based on some of the things that I say, there's going to be some criticism. And there's always going to be some asshole who sees a 30-second clip on Instagram or on TikTok, more specifically TikTok, because a lot of people will see your stuff and they don't follow you. And they'll jump in the comments and they'll start saying something stupid. And I'm like, do you understand that this is a 30-second clip? I'll give you an example. Like, I had an episode a couple of weeks ago talking about the summertime, and I put up a clip about, kids playing outside and not playing outside like how we used to play outside back in the day. And someone jumped in the comments and said, well, hey, you just don't understand. Global warming is terrible and it's not good and healthy for kids to be outside. And I'm like, you do understand that, first of all, what I said was in jest. Jest. I was being funny, right? Secondly, I don't know you, lady. So I don't understand why you jumping in my comments. And there was a back and forth, and I was entertaining, and she criticized the podcast, saying that I was old and out of touch. That might be true. But guess what? I don't care. So she eventually took down her comments, which leads me to believe that she probably blocked me, which is cool because I wasn't following her. I don't know who she was anyway. But again, if you're going to do something worthwhile, whether it be a podcast, whether it be you venture out on your own, career-wise, whatever you're doing, there's going to be critics. And, you just have to make sure that your biggest critic doesn't lie in between your two ears. That's it. Number 3, your mental health is way more important than your career will ever be. Let me say that again. Your mental health is way more important than your career will ever be. Man, don't spend a whole bunch of time worrying about stuff and making yourself sick at that job. Because here's the thing, I've seen it, and I've seen people live it, and I've lived it at one point in time in my life where you're just going so hard for this job, and you're doing everything, and you're going to work early and staying late, and it takes a toll on your health, your mental health. It takes a toll on maybe your family life or what have you. Man, listen, if you drop dead tomorrow, they will replace you. Excuse me. They will replace you. Ain't no doubt about it. Are you feeling nostalgic for the golden eras of rap and soul music? If so, tune in to the Rap Soul Podcast. We are your weekly journey through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, spotlighting the music and the hidden gems that shaped the soundtrack of our lives. From the powerful beats to the soulful melodies, we bring you the best of the past with fresh insights and stories. Rediscover the music that defined a generation. Subscribe to the Rap Soul Podcast and enjoy the vibes. If you want a podcast where culture, conversation, and life collide, where you get insightful commentary, engaging discussions, and a fresh perspective on everything, then you need to listen to the 12 Kyle Podcast. Hosted by the one and only, yours truly, 12 Kyle, a voice that you know and trust. This podcast will bring you thought-provoking moments, compelling stories, and a whole lot of fun. Whether you're a first-time listener or just tuning in, each episode promises to be something new and exciting. So sit back, relax, join 12 Kyle, myself, and my guests as we break down the world around us and give you stories that you've never heard before. From nostalgic throwbacks to everything in between, the 12 Kyle Podcast is a front row seat to this conversation. Subscribe now and never miss an episode of the 12 Kyle Podcast, where the vibe is always real and the discussion is always worth your time. About that, you will be replaced. There's going to be a little brief time for mourning or whatever. Oh man, whoop-de-whoop, he had a good career. We loved him. We're going to miss him. Man, listen, that seat will not be cold. And you know my motto, if you don't own the company, everybody's expendable. So invest in your career, but also protect your mental health. Protect your mental health at all parts, at all points. Because if you don't, who will? Nobody. You got to look out for yourself, first and foremost. Number 4. You become an unstoppable force when you realize that you can do it alone. You can. You really can. There's not a lot of things in this world that you can do alone, but guess what? It starts with a belief. And one of the things that I try to do, particularly as a father, is instill in my kids the confidence to understand that you can do anything that you put your mind to. Now, if you want to make excuses, you can do that too. But nobody's got time for excuses because excuses don't take you anywhere. Excuses will have you standing in the same place, in the same spot, day after day after day. And then days become weeks, weeks become months, months become years. Nobody's got time for excuses. But you can become an unstoppable force when you realize that you can do it alone. Now, everything you can't do alone, but you can get more done alone than you can worrying about or waiting on people to help you. The easiest motivator is yourself. You have to motivate yourself. If you can motivate yourself, that's half the battle right there. Number 5, be okay with people not liking you. Most people don't like themselves. That's a fact. So there's going to be some people that don't like you just because they see something in you that they don't have in themselves. That's their problem, not yours. Always remember that. You're not the one with the problem. If you don't like me, then that's on you. That's a you problem. It's never been my problem. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. And we use the term haters. There's always going to be haters. There's always going to be haters. And like I said, be okay with it. Be okay with having haters. The more haters you got, the better off you are. And more often than not, if you got a lot of haters, that means you might be doing something right. But again, people don't like themselves. Some people really hate themselves. So if they hate themselves, what do you think they're going to say about you? Number 6, not everything will go according to plan. Be ready to adapt. You got to be ready to adapt. Pivot. The plan is not always going to go the way that you want it to go. You have to be flexible. I don't care what you're doing in life. You got to be flexible because you're going to call a play and you come to the line of scrimmage and you're looking at, and I'm using a football reference here. You come to the line of scrimmage and you're looking off and the next thing you know, the safety's not where you thought he was going to be. And the cornerback is inching up and the linebacker is on his heels. That means he's going to drop back into coverage. Well, that goes against what you've called in the huddle. What are you going to do? You can audible to a new play, or you can run the play that you called, but you know that you got to improvise. And that's what happens when things don't go according to plan. You got to improvise. And life really is about how you adapt, because one of the key things about life is that you don't know what's going to be thrown at you. None of us know from day to day what's going to be thrown at us. A lot of us have pretty good days, but you don't know what's going to be thrown at you the next day. So for as great as my Thursday was, Friday really might throw me a huge curveball. And I really have to be mentally and physically prepared to deal with it. So, like I said, not everything's going to go according to plan. Be ready to adapt. That's game. It's just game. Number 7, you can always choose to be happy no matter what happens in your life. Being sad should never be an option. Now, I know that there are people who deal with mental health and sadness and depression. I am very empathetic for that. I don't know how that feels, so I try my best not to condemn people who go through those things. But I always say, and this is something that my coach in college used to always say, shout out to Coach J, Coach Jeffries. I know you're listening and watching. He would always say, just because you had a bad day doesn't mean you have a bad life. And that's the truth. So if you're sad one day, that doesn't mean that you got to be sad the next day. Happiness in a lot of ways is a choice. Some of us wake up and choose to be happy about it because we woke up. Because quite frankly, there are some people that aren't going to wake up tomorrow or the next day or the day after that. And so happiness is a choice. You can choose to be happy. You can choose to be miserable. It's up to you. And lastly, number 8, don't waste your time stressing about the things you can't control. That's huge. That is so huge. I truly live by that. That's some real game right there. Don't waste your time stressing about the things that you can't control. I think the easiest thing to do is to be prepared for what you know that you have control over. You know, it's like we were talking a couple of days ago when we recorded the episode. Shout out to my homegirl, Marie. We were talking about getting married, and we were talking, and I think she mentioned something about being nervous or something. And I was like, there's no reason for you to be nervous at your wedding. You know the result. Like, you're not going to get to the altar and he say no. You're not going to get to the altar and Dwayne Wayne shows up and steals your girl from, like he did Byron on A Different World. You know the result. I would be nervous about playing, when I was playing football at South Carolina State University, I would be nervous about playing against Howard. I knew we were prepared. I knew I was prepared, but you're still nervous because you don't know the outcome. And you step inside of Oliver C. Dawson Stadium in Orangeburg, South Carolina, and 22,000 people are going crazy. The band is going crazy. You don't know how that game's going to go. There are ebbs and flows, but I wasn't going to waste my time stressing about it. I didn't know the outcome, but I knew what I could control. And I think when you know what you can control, you're in a much better place mentally, you know, but if you didn't study for that test, yeah, you're going to be stressed out thinking about that test because guess what? You weren't prepared. Your lack of preparation eliminated your ability to control the situation. Now, if you have control, you would be prepared. You would have studied. And when you sat down to take that test, you're fine. You're okay. But again, you can't waste your time stressing about things you can't control, because what we'll find out a lot about life, and again, this is just game. What you'll find out a lot about life is that we have probably more control than we know that we do. And the control that we have, I don't know that we use as much of it as we should. In conclusion, a lot of what I said, everything that I said is just game. It's just game. Now, it's up to you to take the game and run with it. I'm very glad that I saw this on Facebook. See a lot of stuff on Facebook, but this is something that I was not only able to turn into content, I think I gave you some game and something to take with you. And for me, that's a good thing. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Thanks again for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. We got new episodes every Thursday and every Sunday at midnight. If you'd like to contribute to the podcast financially, hit us up on Cash App, $TWELVEKYLE. Also, we have merch. Just click the merch button in the description box and you can buy 12 Kyle podcast t-shirts, hoodies, as well as coffee mugs. We got it for the low. You can find the podcast wherever you find podcasts. You can watch us on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. Like, share, and subscribe there. Also, we have a new baby. It is called the Rap Soul Podcast. It is the intersection where we have discussions about music, more specifically R&B, hip-hop, rap, and soul music from the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. It's the best music podcast that you've never heard, so check it out. Again, that's going to do it for me. I am your boy 12 Kyle. I'll catch you guys next time. 5,000. Cheers.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the 12 Kyle podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and share this podcast with a friend who needs the 12 Kyle podcast in their life. Every listen, every download, and every share helps us grow. Thanks for being a part of the 12 Kyle podcast community. We appreciate your support. We will catch you next time. 5,000.